Hi, everybody. Like I said, it's Maker Monday, and now it makes me happy that it's a Monday. Otherwise, Mondays are the worst, but because of this, they are now officially kind of the best. And today I have a double treat for everybody. So we kept the term Maker Monday just because we wanted to continue to have people know that we are going to keep coming back on Mondays to talk about a wide variety of things. And in August, we're really putting a focus on distance learning, virtual classrooms, getting ready for back to school. Next week, there is going to be a little bit of a making element, but it's going to be hard because it's 3D and it's using pop cans. So I don't really know how you can get prepared for it ahead of time, but we're switching it up a little bit. But this one I am very, very excited for because I have Michele Agosto and Rachel Lyons from Buffalo Public School District. And they're both amazing humans that do unbelievable stuff. And so when I started thinking about, best practices and that kind of stuff, I absolutely knew that I wanted to call Michele. And so she rounded the troops and got Rachel. And so we're going to get started. There's handouts. So there is the PowerPoint that they are sharing that I put in there. I also put in a cool article that Michele had shared too. Great information. But I'm going to turn it over to you, Michele. Michele and Rachel, thank you so much for being here. And I'm excited to see what you got for us today.
Well, thank you, Kris. We're so happy that we're on. And I'm hoping that I can jump into my presentation. Let's see. I don't think I practiced this part. Let's see. There we go. All right. So I want to thank everyone for, chiming in and being here with us today. And I want to thank Kris for the opportunity and Nasco for the opportunity for allowing us to be on and sharing some of the information that we've collected over this experience that all of us have had to endure during COVID. So I'll just get started and jump right into the presentation, hoping that whatever we share is going to be helpful to you. And if you have any questions, of course, Kris says she'll be checking the chat box, and you can just throw your questions in there. We'll be happy to answer them. So we're going to start with some best practices for a virtual art classroom, ideas and resources for a better art experience for everyone. And Rachel Lyons will be joining me right after I show these slides. And she is one of our master art teachers here in the district. And she has some great ideas. She also has a digital background. So I think her information will be very helpful for our teachers who are actually in the classroom. Let's see. So here we go. So what to expect? So I'm hoping to describe some of the things that we're doing here in the Buffalo Public Schools to support virtual learning. Again, just like all of you, we had to learn quick and fast and adapt really quickly to a virtual learning environment. So we'll share that with you. We'll also offer some resources and information that hopefully can help you as visual art teachers to instruct in a virtual art classroom. And we'll also share some teacher-developed best practices. Rachel will do that are working for her students, and hopefully they'll also work for yours. Okay. And why can't I get to my next slide? Here we go, thank you. So pretty much this, I guess, is what every arts teacher in the world during COVID-19 instruction kind of looked like. It was a chaotic, stressful time for art teachers. And I think this poor Mona Lisa, talk about a Mona Lisa Monday, this is pretty much what everyone looked like for a few months. Learning how to teach art, something that is obviously a very physical course, to teach it virtually. Next slide. We're having trouble with the slide. I'm not sure. Oh, here we go. Try this. I'm not sure. Oh, there we go. Stalling, and I apologize for that. See if I can go back. There it is. So don't feel alone, teachers, because our children also were very stressed. You can see this poor young man or young lady wrote, homeschooling is not going good. My mom's getting stressed out. My mom's really getting confused. We took a break so my mom can figure out this stuff out. I'm telling you, it is not going good. And I'm sure many of our students felt that way, our parents felt that way. So we were all in the same space. So I think that kind of gives us a sense of relief that we were all struggling with the same things. So the Buffalo Public Schools, the Department of Arts, decided to take on some of the challenges that presented itself as far as teaching virtually art. And we relied on a lot of our partners. We relied on a lot of our management learning platforms and social media. And of course our website, and I'll show you what our website looks like too. But really it was just a community effort to make teaching art possible on a digital online setting. Some of your districts may or may not have licenses with some of these companies, but I did want to share a couple of things. Some of them have free like testing sites or a free service that you can use. There's a limited amount of things that you can do, but they are free. And sometimes your district often has some licenses that you may or may not realize can be helpful to you. So I'm just sharing what we do in the district. And when we get to Rachel will show you much more specific things as how she uses some of these technologies and links and softwares, but also some of the creative ways that she and her school came up with to help students kind of march through the last 3 months of 2020 at school. So we have a license with Davis Publications, and we also ordered through Scholastic Arts. Davis Publications, right here, I'll have a link here so we can go right to it, offers all sorts of free training and free resources. You may have to have a license or have ordered textbooks, but they do have some free opportunities, some free books. You can order a book if you like to look at a book. They'll give you a free one to test out. But they also have these wonderful curriculum builders, portfolios, and we've used this tremendously in that crunch time when we were trying to figure out what to do with our kids those last starting March 13th. I'll never forget the day. And so this can be helpful. Davis obviously is a great partner for arts teachers. So if you don't know anything about Davis, I would definitely look at that. And again, they do have some free things to look for and some help updates and webinars that I think would be very helpful to you. Scholastic Arts is the same thing. So where they have an art magazine that's free, they give you a free sample, so which is always nice if you haven't subscribed. It's a great resource, great images, great questions. They have critical thinking, they have different topics, current, modern, contemporary artists, as well as master artists information. And they also have all sorts of different studio projects that you can link into. Let's see if this will open up for you. Now they had to, Scholastic Art as well as Davis had to come up with solutions for all of us who are now teaching virtually. So they came up with lots of interesting ways to integrate their materials into a virtual world. And so you can see where they've offered links, so you can share links with students and use some of the lesson ideas here that I think would be helpful. When you're highly stressed and thinking of new ways to deliver material, this is a great go-to if you're just looking for something to kind of carry you through until you can figure out your own curriculum. Now, the district has several different online platforms, and Rachel will tell you that it does get confusing. So we in our effort to try to offer all sorts of alternatives, we also kind of over offer. But a couple of the things that I did want to share with you, which you can access for a free trial or a free link. And actually, I'm going to close this one and go right to the one that I already have open. Schoology, I believe, was the first one I was going to. Yeah. And you can see where this platform, Schoology, many of you use Google Classroom. The district does not use, our district does not use Google Classroom. We use Schoology. And we have found they're not that dissimilar. The look looks different, but it's the same concept. You create groups with your classroom or courses. These are my groups. I'm an administrator, and so I don't have classes per se, but I do have different groups, and I can just show you one of them, which is our arts educators group. And you can see that this is where we can have discussions. These are my teachers. This is Rachel right here sharing some information with our fellow colleagues. But you can see you can have discussion platforms, very much like Google Classroom. And there are conferences that you can have right on Schoology. And you can also add resources. So it's a very easy way to maneuver, and all of our students in the district have access to Schoology. They all have their own account, and they're automatically grouped in Schoology by class and course. So it makes it easier for teachers, which is really, really nice. I don't know if Google Classroom does that, but Schoology does. And we find that this platform works really well. It is something to get used to when you're not used to dealing with digital platforms or online management platforms. But if you are looking for a platform or you like to test it out, you can just join in for free and create an account, and you can kind of test it and see if it works for you. Office 365 is something that we're just working in the district. And see, where are we? And we had just recently some PD on this, so you can see we're learning about Teams, because I think Teams is going to be the way we're going to do a lot of professional development in the district. But that's also a great way to work with students, especially our high school students. I think Teams is a great way to get high school students to work together and small groups and collaborative groups, share artwork. Talk about artwork is a great option. And these are just some of the links and icons that are in Microsoft 365. And there's so many, I don't know all of them. And sometimes I'm afraid to click on something, which I'm sure some of you feel that way sometimes, but it's worth exploring. We also have a Clever and a Nearpod. Nearpod is, I'm going to skip Clever for now because I'm looking at, well, I'll go to Clever really quickly and just show you what we do offer. Clever is just another, it's like a homing site, and it kind of places all the apps that the district uses in this space, which can be found on our website. And as you can see, like I said, sometimes we kind of overdo it, trying to give as many options and resources to our teachers, because as you know, all teachers have different needs, and art teachers definitely have different needs as compared to our ELA and math colleagues. But this is a platform that we use. And the other one I wanted to show you was Nearpod. Nearpod's interesting, and that is also a licensed program that we use. But it's a district library, and you can see that there are different disciplines listed here. And we have an arts section right in the library, which our children also have access to. So teachers can pull up a Nearpod activity. Teachers can create Nearpod activities, and we have them in dance, theater, and visual arts. And you can see that we have various options that can be supportive of art instruction in the classroom. And this you can link, you can add to your library, you can add to a student's library. And this is a nice element, so you don't have to rewrite a lesson or just redo a whole, redo the whole thing. You have some good information in those videos. And the last thing I want to share with you are the social media platforms that we have. And I encourage all of you who are on to join us here on our Facebook page. We love Facebook. Let me rephrase that. I love Facebook. And here you can see that our teachers have access to share here on our site. Now, this may not be helpful for students, but this is a great way for teachers to talk about ideas and collaborate. We've shared some best practices in the district. I had several of my teachers, including Rachel, partake in this particular best practices for a virtual arts classroom that was shared in the district. And there's Kris right there, and Kris has access, so she can post. But we just share all sorts of different ideas. And I find this to be a really critical piece of our virtual learning as far as our teachers are concerned. And so I wouldn't shy away from Facebook. You can accept or not accept people to go into certain groups. But I find that this has been very helpful. And as you can see, teachers like to share things that they do. And of course, you can see all the wonderful photos that we have that I definitely like to show off because I love our arts teachers. We have a great crew, and the things that they do are always so amazing. So we like to share ideas. So if you are someone who is by themselves in the school, if you're in a rural area or don't have a lot of art teachers to talk to, feel free to jump on. We invite you. We also have a Twitter page that you can follow us on. And we all have all sorts of interesting information, a lot of social justice stuff that I put on Twitter. And we have a workplace, which is part of Facebook, but it's just for the district. And it looks sort of like this. It's a Facebook work platform. So this is just Buffalo Public School staff. Parents and students do not have access to this. But this is also another good way to share information. The last thing I'm going to share with you, well, before I share the YouTube, I do want to share just two more things. On the web, we have a website, buffaloschools.org, and here you can see we have all sorts of resources for home instruction. Parents have access to this, so you would have access to this, and I invite you to look at what we have posted. We also had a virtual art gallery because it's the one thing that we missed very much was to see our children shine. And so we offered an opportunity virtually for our students to partake in a virtual student art exhibition, which is wonderful. So I hope you can watch that later. And feel free to check in on our virtual museum tours. We collected and combined a bunch of websites and different tours throughout New York and the nation and even the world to have students, families, teachers access and do some virtual field trips and learn about art in different museums and galleries and some unusual places too. There's a puppetry museum on there too, which is fascinating. I know Kris told you about the article that I shared. It's a great article about teaching art online, and I would highly suggest you read that and even subscribe to Hyperallergic, which is a great arts online magazine. And I wanted to share this with you, which I'll put on the chat, this link, and it's Research for Better Teaching, and they're having a virtual classroom webinar in August. Some of them are free and some of them are not. This one isn't, but it is research-based, and so this could be helpful for people who are really having a lot of angst about virtual art classroom. So it's something to consider. And the last thing up here that I wanted to show you was there are actual national standards for quality online learning. And so I'll share this link here on the chat too after when Rachel gets on. And this could be helpful just to see what the standards are that apply to all disciplines that are taught. So the last thing I want to share is our YouTube page, and then I'll jump over to Rachel. I think I'm right about my time. And YouTube, where are you? Right here. And here you can see we also have our BPS Department of Arts YouTube page. And this is really one of my favorite new things that we've started doing. We've had a YouTube page for a while with nothing in it. And suddenly we have lots of things in it. And this is just almost a repository for our teachers where they create videos. I'll create videos like the gallery, the virtual gallery, but we also have teachers here. These are all of our teachers, and Rachel's right here. And they have their own channels, and we kind of plop them into the Department of Arts, and they're all shareable. So if you're an art teacher in another district that is having trouble finding ideas or looking for lessons that really align with curriculum or the standards, and we do have New York State arts standards, then this is where you may want to go visit. And we're happy to share all of this with you because we are believers in learning communities, and we believe the more we share, the more we learn. And that's what we have. So let me see if I can go to the next slide, which I seem to have trouble with sometimes. And so I think we do all of this work. Oh, and one more thing. The National Art Education Association, if you are a member, they have a remote learning toolkit. I would suggest everyone become a member of the National Art Education Association. They have incredible resources for you. And they have a remote learning toolkit, some PDFs that are really, I think, super helpful when it comes to planning for virtual arts classrooms. But basically, I compiled what they said in their PDF into 4 little bullets. Prepare, plan, and participate. Think about how children need to participate, and make sure you plan that in your lesson planning. And be prepared. Make sure you know your technology. Make sure you know how to use it, how to go back and forth from online videos to one-on-one speaking to students live. You want to think about supplies, resources, and innovation. Rachel will definitely talk a lot about supplies and resources, where there are some schools and districts that have limited resources and supplies, students that have limited resources and supplies. How do you make that work in an online environment? Communication, community, and compassion, another piece where you want to be able to make sure you communicate your needs, and students should be able to communicate theirs. Use your community resources. See if there's some museums, galleries, donors that want to support this kind of learning, and be compassionate and always be flexible, because what I've learned with virtual online learning is flexibility will save your life. So be flexible. And I also have attached some blended learning strategies and project-based learning strategies that could be helpful to you. That is a document that is attached to the webinar. But basically, it'll list a bunch of things that you should think about when you're planning your virtual online, which is really, it isn't that much different than planning your own classroom, in-classroom environment learning. Make sure you have collaborative opportunities. How do you do that with technology? You have to think about that. You want to front load and authentically apply vocabulary. So that should always be front and center. Chunk, discuss, and facilitate student thinking. So we shouldn't, I'm doing a lot of talking here, but on a virtual online site, there should be a lot of student thinking and student talking. And how do you encourage that? And how can you do it so that students feel comfortable? You want to promote multiple ways to meet objectives. Again, that means just being really flexible so that students can be successful in, on an environment that may seem a little different than the classroom. And so we do all of this to avoid this. So we want to make sure we don't bore our kids and they're not, making the screen black. So so that, we want to make sure they're engaged and fully all in. whatever you decide to plan. And so now I'd like to introduce Rachel, who's going to show you how she puts all of the things that I've talked about, which is a lot, into the work that she does, making art, making as much art making as possible in this world of the virtual online art classroom. So I am done with mine.
Okay, so let me show my screen here and then pop open. I have a couple different things to show today. And I think for this to work, there's no one right answer. I felt like I needed to do these multiple things. So the first thing I'm going to show you is my YouTube channel. I know Michelle said there's a link to it from the BPS page, but one of my immediate concerns with my students, and I'm sure it worked a lot this way in a lot of districts, is we left on a Friday sort of having a sense that at some point this was going to hit us and we were going to have to sort of change gears. And then Monday hit and it was only staff reporting, having that day to plan so that the next day we could hand out materials for our students and prepare basically not to see them again until further notice. So it was very quick for us when it happened. The day I handed out materials to my kids, I was like, okay, here, take this micron pen, make sure you have something to draw with, take this little bundle of Sharpies. I basically rated my classroom and anything I had, handed it out to my students on the way out the door so I knew they had something. But realistically, I knew that not all of my students would have art supplies at home. They may not all have access to a lot of things. So I started my YouTube channel kind of with the idea in mind of being able to do art with supplies that the kids would have handy. So I have a recipe to make paper mache paste. All you need is cornstarch, which is something a lot of kids have in their cabinet anyway. Making wallets from cereal boxes. These kids you're seeing in these videos, by the way, these are my children. I get the teacher perspective of this, but also the parent perspective, because I was sitting at a dining room table trying to do my teaching stuff with my 4 kids sitting around me, trying to do their schoolwork and trying to help them with everything they needed. So I put them to work. My youngest 3 were very involved in helping me make the YouTube videos, and they did the art projects along with me. So here's one. I did a whole video about mandalas. This is a Girl Scout cookie that we painted with food dye. It's just stuff you may have at home. This is one we did actually, in addition to my YouTube channel. The art department has for a very long time been involved with Juneteenth Buffalo. Buffalo has one of the largest Juneteenth celebrations in the country, and the art department has always set up a tent there, but this year we had to do it virtually, so we made videos for that. So one of the early things I struggled with was I can always think of all these fun printing projects that you can do for home, but people don't have a brayer, and that's so necessary. So what I finally came up with, actually I think I can just unmute so I can play
a brayer at home. So Olivia's
of course it's going to stop it now. This is on their Facebook page, but of course I had it preloaded and it went back to the beginning, that be flexible thing, right? Let me see if I can find the right spot here again. Not quite there. So, you know, I have a brayer at home because I'm an art teacher, but not everybody does. So after I showed them how to do that, we figured out that we could use a foam hair roller. So let me show you that. So all of my videos were really trying to figure out how to do stuff from home. And actually, I think this printed better than the brayer anyway. So that's one of the things I did, was start to create YouTube videos. Then I used Schoology quite a bit. So our district has Schoology, and it was something I used before. My courses have been archived, but this is what the home screen of Schoology looks like for me. It's got a feed very similar to what Facebook would have. And then I have 2 different areas that are really important to me, courses and groups. So all of my students are preloaded into courses, and I can put any of my course content for them there. And then the groups allow me to speak to whatever sort of designated bunch of people is in a particular group. This also has a messaging capability, which is really important because there's been a lot of circumstances where kids had specific problems that they messaged me privately about. That feature was really important during this whole thing. So here is, I preloaded one of my courses so I could show you sort of what that looks like. And I used Schoology before COVID too. So I'm going to show you it kind of evolved and changed a little bit, but this is my first quarter assignments for my graphic design course. And you can see that for each project that they have, I have a folder, and then in each folder is all the resources they need for that particular project. So this has got the handout, it's got all the information for what I wanted them to do the first day they were in Illustrator. I also did a screen recording of how to use the beginning tools I taught them in Illustrator. So like if a kid missed the first day demo, they can go into Schoology and load the first day demo and watch me demonstrate the whole thing. So that was sort of how it looked before COVID. And I used it more to do sort of daily updates. I did continue to load assignments in for them and give them the opportunity. You can load videos, you can load images, you can create discussion groups that the kids have to comment on. All of that can be done in Schoology. So I started doing sort of daily updates every day for the kids to let them know sort of where we're at. And it's also got, each of the courses has an analytics feature, which is not here now because this course is archived now, but you can go on and check when your kids have been on last, which is nice because sometimes they're not commenting. So the other thing we have, in addition to each of my courses having their own page in Schoology, is I have this visual art majors group. The school that I teach in is the Magnet School for the Arts, and all of the kids had to audition to get there. So the kids that are art majors, I put them all into this art major group, and I use it as sort of a message board for anything that I think would be interesting or important to them. And this became really the part where kids were responding most to me. So, you know, if something like even now, I've got if a poster contest comes along, I put it up there, especially if it's something where they can win money or that kind of thing, any sort of opportunities that they have. The kids can post on here and talk to each other. The kids can give each other feedback on things. But the thing that we found most successful was I did this sketchbook album where kids could upload the work that they were doing from home. Part of the reason I think this was successful is because before COVID, Liz Larrabee, that I work with very closely, and I had sort of developed this sketchbook program where we had a problem with the way that schools traditionally use sketchbooks because they're very assignment based, and that's not really the way that artists use sketchbooks. So we sort of felt that disconnect. And we developed a sketchbook process where kids are basically required to work in their sketchbook every day, and we check off that they're working every day, but the content is completely up to them. And then each day, as we're looking at their submissions, we give them feedback, maybe suggest an artist they should look at based on what we're seeing, suggest materials they should try, probably loan them materials to try. But the content of their sketchbooks is completely self-directed, and then we give them a push sort of in the direction we think they need to go. But this system was already in place where we did a monthly sketchbook. So at the end of every month, we did a sketchbook critique where the students sat around a table and passed their sketchbooks around, and they can make post-it note comments on each other's work. The criteria for that are that it's specific, helpful, and kind. So when COVID started happening, I offered the sketchbook majors the chance to sort of do this virtually where they can submit anything they want to this album, and then they can use any materials they want. So if they have a traditional sketchbook, they can just photograph the page and upload it, and you can upload it from your phone. If they're doing digital work, they can upload that. This student does alterations of dolls, which I think are kind of cool, but it's completely driven by them in terms of what they want to do, and then we can give them feedback and the other students can give them feedback. But then the component we added back in was the part of the deal with the sketchbook challenge at the end of every month was there are always prizes associated with it. So we would have the students vote on a student choice who did the best on their sketchbook each month. And then Liz and I would each choose a teacher choice, and those students would win art supplies as prizes. So we just made that virtual, and every week the students would get a chance to vote on the winner for the week. And the winner, we would send an art supply in the mail. So, and that is something, it's not necessarily an ideal situation because Liz and I were buying art supplies ourselves and just sending them. We did that a couple times. But the rules for the voting were, if you just wrote a student's name, that counted as 1 vote for them. And if you gave the student's name and gave specific feedback as in terms of why you thought they should win, that counted as 2 votes for that student. So really encouraging the students to give very specific feedback to each other as well. Some of them, she's a visual artist. Oh, sorry, that had froze on me. So that's her animation she submitted. Some of them use traditional media, colored pencil, that kind of thing. My bar, let me get rid of a couple of these because I can't reach the ones on the right there. Definitely, especially towards the end of the school year, after George Floyd was murdered, there was definitely a lot of plugging into social justice issues with my students. It's not something we've ever shied away from. I think there's a lot of important artwork created in that subject area, and it was important for us to, especially in this moment, take a look at that work and create work based on that. So this is one of the drawings that one of my students did. And then this is also after George Floyd was murdered, we created another album called Power, where we started every day sharing an artist that did really important work in this social justice area. So this album is just filled with particular images from the Artist Power album, and we give the name of the artist and the title. But in my art majors feed, if you go back each day, I was sharing one of these artworks and giving sort of guided questions or things for the students to think about in response to these artworks as well. And I think that's basically what I have to show you. Oh, in terms of art supplies, I almost forgot about this part, sorry. In terms of the art supplies, you know, I handed them stuff on the way going out the door, but then knowing that we were going to be out longer, knowing we were going to be running out of things, we felt the need to like physically connect with our students too, in addition to the online stuff. So I bought this is a long arm stapler. It allows you to just staple into the middle of a book. So every few weeks, I would send another sketchbook in the mail. So I basically just made these by folding paper, stapling it in the middle, and then you can seal them up, put a couple stamps on them, and send them. So I would send those. I would write notes to my students inside the front cover, just asking them like how they were, telling them please get on Schoology and check in, just so I know you're okay, that kind of stuff. And then Liz and I also, watercolor sets fit in an envelope. So we also sent watercolor sets to all of our 9th graders. These were sort of expensive to mail. It actually cost more to mail each one than it did to buy the watercolors, but you know, we really like felt the need to make sure that we knew that they had supplies. So that was one way for us to know they had something, at least, was to send it to them ourselves. So yeah, so I guess if there's any questions or anything, right? I'm sure I forgot something, but maybe somebody will ask a question that'll bring it back to my brain.
Absolutely. And oh my gosh, you guys, I got an entire page full of notes and I'm not even a teacher. I'm just jotting all this amazing stuff down because I just want to make sure that people are hearing what I hear. First of all, that Mona Lisa slide, like seriously, so true. And as a vendor that supports art educators, like we get it, like that's how we felt too. And your feedback, like for sure helps us serve you better. The sketchbook hack is brilliant. Making it an actual mailer, like that was fabulous. Question on the sketchbooks and the comments that students make to each other, are those, so does when somebody says like, hey, that's super cool, does that go out to everybody and everybody sees it?
Everybody in that group sees it, yes.
And is there rules that you can't say like that super sucks?
Yes, the rules for the feedback is that it has to be specific, helpful, and kind.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. So, and I love that.
I've never had a problem with it, but I could delete a comment if it was inappropriate. So like part of that is me sort of managing that, making sure I'm reading what kids are writing. But I really truly have never had a problem with that.
Love it. Fantastic. On the kindness note, it also just talking about the social justice.
Yeah.
I know when I came to visit, and Michelle, like as the director of arts, like you're just so top notch. It's just ridiculous. So a million years ago, when I just knew that I had met such a gem, I'm like, can I please come visit and learn more? And I live in Wisconsin. It's embarrassing. Wisconsin's one of the most segregated state in the United States. It's embarrassing that in our, binge drinking, it's many things to be proud of. But seriously, the diversity was awesome. It was awesome. And the collaboration and the community that happens and the open conversations. And so I keep talking about the silver linings in 2020 because it is definitely a great big gray cloud. And I think the sharing of those resources and connecting with people like Rachel and Michelle and the Buffalo School District, because they live it and they do it and they breathe it and they're good at it. And that's how we learn. And so, Wisconsin teachers, if you're watching, these are the people to follow. Like, this is how we learn it and how we get better. And so I really appreciated that part of your classroom management and how you use it. And we know that not everybody has Schoology. There's tons of classroom management. Nasco, even on their K to Career Resource Center subscription base, you can get a 2-week trial, but there's even a classroom management system on there. And so, trying to figure out how they all integrate and how they work together is awesome. Another question that was asked had to do with the printmaking. So they said the hair roller was genius, and it definitely was.
In a while, I was really frustrated by it.
On top of that, though, what do you do when there's no paint situation?
I didn't get into that realm super specifically, but I know that a lot of my colleagues were talking about trying to make natural paints using like food dyes or ground up food items, actually. So I do think that is something that some of my colleagues looked into. It wouldn't surprise me if some of those videos, I know it's in our Schoology group for BPS art educators that people are talking about that particular issue as well.
Yeah, and like Rachel said, sometimes they just found alternatives where maybe they couldn't find paint, but they're using coffee grinds to get the feel of watercolor. So, so they were very innovative and they pushed themselves past their own boundaries and limits just to figure out ways to get kids to do art with what they had at home.
Mm-hmm. My grandson painted with mud one day. They
That's
just
awesome.
got some dirt, they made some mud and did the little dinosaur painting. It turned out pretty damn cute.
Yeah.
Another question is, so is the Sketchbook Mailer is what I'm calling it.
Yes.
Is that one of the videos?
No, this is just, it's just copy paper. I put about 20 sheets, folded it in half, used the long arm stapler to staple it, taped it closed at the bottom, put two stamps will send it. I mailed one to myself first to make sure it would work.
Brilliant.
Don't forget, I think what is awesome about the mailer is that she had written notes in there for the students.
Like,
It got a specific message.
So there's no note inside, but like on the first page of each sketchbook, I wrote a note to the kid that was individualized based on like, I'm loving the submissions I'm seeing on the sketchbook page. Keep up the good work. Or haven't heard from you yet. Please check in with me just so I know you're okay. And there was definitely kids that like I hadn't heard from at all yet. That once they got a sketchbook in the mail, they at least popped in to say, hey, it's been tough for my family, but thanks for thinking of me. We're doing all right now. Like some kids that I never heard from before this was the thing that pushed them to actually reply. The watercolor set, there was a kid we hadn't heard from at all since school ended. And when we sent her the watercolor set, she checked in and she's like, stuff is really rough for me right now, but I know that you guys are still thinking of me because you sent me that.
Oh, I love that so much.
So I think the mailing stuff, like I'm gonna, at some point in the next week or so, I think I'm just gonna send summer postcards to all of them to let them know I'm still thinking of them, because I think that in person, that like tangible thing they received from me was so important.
Yep. One of the earlier summer Maker Mondays that we had, Heather Hagee from Florida did exactly that. You know, she would just be doing her usual, like her own art, but she was doing like sketchable postcards or the Jack Richardson postcards. And then, you know, she would accumulate them and then she would send them to her students, which I think that kind of, it's just another reason why art educators are amazing.
I think in the fall,
somebody did also suggest a pool noodle as a brayer. That's pretty genius. A pool noodle. So we talked about that. I'm just looking at the, did the students upload their own photos for the art show, or did you put it together yourself? What program did you use? I saw Padlet used a student-made art show online.
Yeah. So every year, the district holds a district art show where every school, every teacher, and at least 2 students from every school participate. It's our largest exhibition, and we have 12 a year, so that's the big one. And this year, of course, we couldn't do it physically at our normal site, which is our public library. So we asked our teachers to talk to their students, understanding that many of them did not have artwork with them, that we were right at that cusp of a timeline where we needed to pull it together. And so it was a manageable monster, but it was a monster. And so we had about maybe half of our teachers participate. You know, it was what it was. You know, technology, again, not all teachers are technology savvy. So it's not only the students but the teachers. So I understood that, but I allowed teachers to send me as many as they wanted. And so we filled up about, I forgot how long it was, maybe, was that about 18 minutes or so, 18-minute video, yeah, of all the artwork. And I did it myself. I pulled it together on iMovie, put some cool tracks on it, and then just shared it. And the library posted it on their website. We posted it on ours, and of course we pushed it through social media, and you know, and liked it and shared it and did all that good stuff. But it was really successful, and the parents were very happy. The parents of the children who were involved were thrilled.
It just makes you feel good. It makes you feel good as a parent to see your child's stuff on there, which then always makes me go back to this comment too. As a parent, when my daughter and son were in school, you're so proud of their achievement. As a parent, that is what consumes you, that probably 9 out of 10 times you forget that there is this mentor behind their work and their success. And so just on behalf of every parent out there, thank you, teachers. It takes a village. There's just so true to that. So Rachel, share a little bit more about the Art is Power sharing section of the website. What resources or suggestions are the student given as places finding artists? She mentioned leading questions that students are asked. Can she give a couple examples of those?
Let me scroll down and find that again.
Sarah is definitely looking to adapt the idea to middle school. Fantastic.
Oh yeah. All of these artists, this art majors group that I share in is students from 5th grade to 12th. So I've shared this with 5th graders. So let me see here, I think.
Yeah, and share your screen again if you want to show us.
If you want to share my screen again, I can show you where I started showing this. So I will say, let me scroll back into this. A lot of these artists are artists that I already followed on Instagram because it's an interest of mine. So it was not terrible in terms of doing the research of finding these artists. A lot of these artists are works that are already hanging in my classroom if we could actually go there right now. So but what I started doing was every day from when I sort of started focusing on this idea till the end of the school year, I would share an artist every day with a little bit of context or information about their work, and then try to ask some prompting questions. So this is David Hammond's. He did both of these artworks several years apart. So the first, this is the African American flag, and that was in 1990. And then, hang on, my tabs are behind things here. Let me get rid of something so that I can get to them.
I believe he was supposed to visit Buffalo and then COVID came.
He is also, oops, I accidentally closed that. Let me open that up again. He is super shy from everything I've read about him too. So it might have been a little bit of a nice excuse too. So, let me scroll back down again here real quick because I accidentally closed my window. So he did that. I'm sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
I'm sorry, while you were looking for that, we also, and Rachel also partners with me in mentoring our newest hires for the district. And so one of the charges that her and her mentees had last year was to start collecting names of artists of color, contemporary artists of color, so that we could share with our art teachers, so that we can ensure that artists of color are being taught in the classroom. And so we're going to share that too.
So this is David Hammond's work, Oh Say Can You See, from 2017. So my prompting question was, why did the theme change? Why did the flag change over time? What was he trying to show us with this change to this sort of tattered flag? But every day I was sharing an artist, and I also made it a effort to include both national and local artists. So this was the Time magazine cover. This artist is Titus Kafar. I don't know if you've seen his work, but it's pretty amazing. This was the Time magazine cover. He was a MacArthur genius. I can't remember what year, but it might have been 2018 or 2019, but he was a MacArthur genius. Hank Willis Thomas. So this work is actually in the Albright Knox Art Gallery, our local art museum. This is titled We the People. And if you go to the Albright website and read about it a little more in depth, it's actually constructed out of prison uniforms. So this is a piece because I take field trips. Well, I used to take field trips quite a bit. Who knows when that'll happen again? But I knew that most of my students had actually probably seen this work in person at one point or another with me, so I wanted to make sure I included that. But he also did, he's a multidisciplinary, does a little bit of everything sort of artist. This work he did for the National Memorial for Peace and Justice.
That's beautiful.
Isn't it? Yeah, so he just does some really amazing work. And something in common with all of these artists too is that these are people who are alive and working now, right? Which I think is really important, because our students understand artwork that's made now because it's in the context of our times. And to me, like, I have an easier time asking them to care about this artwork than I do asking them to care about sunflowers. It's not that work's not beautiful too, but like this is about their world and they understand it. So for me, my son today was looking at a fairly new artwork I had put on the wall, and he saw the date 2014, and he was like, Mom, is that when he made this, or is that when he died? And I was like, what makes you think he's dead? And it occurred just at that moment this morning that he, in art class in school, has never been shown an artist who's alive now.
Yes, yeah. Devin Calvert is also a Wisconsin art educator. He teaches K through 3, third grade, and he is very much about contemporary art and art history with these kids. It's so much fun because I'm not kidding you, these kids are smarter in art history than I ever was or probably am currently. So I love that too. Catherine asked, like, were you able to drop in on your school site at all during that?
No.
So you weren't dropping in and picking things up, right?
No, I have been there once since March 13th, and that was to print diplomas, to help the school print the diplomas and watch kids graduate in our parking lot. So
I cannot believe how fast time has gone. There's still a couple questions.
yeah.
Was every assignment a hands-on art making project and a photo turned in, or did you ever have students use like Google Slides to like make digital art?
If they had access to digital stuff, they were welcome to do that, but I didn't require any specific material for any of the assignments that I gave for March 13th. It was, here's the idea, here's the concept, do it with whatever materials you have at hand. If you want to draw and you have drawing pencils, go ahead. If you have capability to do it digitally, that's fine too. And I will say, at school, I teach computer art and graphic design. So, you know, at school, I have really nice computers that have the Adobe Creative Suite on them.
Right.
The kids' laptops weren't really, it wasn't working out so good. So I had to sort of move away from that temporarily. I'm hoping to really sort that out and get it working well for September because it looks like I'm going to need it. But, you know, the kids have access to all sorts of different things, and that was fine. Whatever materials are fine, here, let's focus on the idea.
That is outstanding. I mean, because, you know, it just throws in those 4 C's too. Critical thinking like crazy, creativity, you know, you're communicating with your parents and your family. Hey, what do you got? What can I use? You know, collaboration on, you know, with you and with others. And yeah, fantastic. I also, one other question, again, what did you use for the online gallery? She said, sorry if you said it, she missed it.
It's okay. I just used iMovie. I made my own iMovie and I posted that as a link. We posted it on YouTube so that it was accessible on a phone. So that was another piece where if a family didn't have a laptop at that point or a tablet, most families, I feel pretty certain, I want to say 99.9% of most families have a cell phone. And so they can access that link on the cell phone. So everyone had access to that virtual art exhibition.
Very cool.
I also shot all my YouTube videos on my phone and just loaded them on iMovie to edit them.
Oh, yeah. You guys, today has been outstanding. I can't believe there's like 2.5 minutes left. Michele, thank you so much. Rachel, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you
guys
so
are
much.
leaders, and you are doing fantastic stuff. This video, for those who are on, will in about an hour, you'll receive a follow-up email thanking you for coming. There's a PD, that certificate you can download for the hour of your time that you spent with us. The recorded session will be on there so that you can rewatch it and just get all the things that you missed, because it was packed with information. Don't forget to download your handouts. Girls, anything else? I mean, I am so grateful. This is going to be housed on Nasco Educate. So you're going to like be on there as like gurus for this virtual art class and distance learning.
I just have 2 things. One, the links that I did not share prior, I'll forward to you. Is that okay, Kris?
Perfect, yes.
Okay, and then the other thing is Buffalo Public Schools Arts Department, we're still hiring. So if you're an art teacher, then you need a job, find me, Emma Agosto at buffaloschools.org.
Yeah, seriously, it would be worth moving across the country to work for Michele. I am not kidding you. And clearly to have a coworker like Rachel, hello, she'd get to mentor you. Score. So with that, you guys, there's so many things that I still want to talk about. Like I love the be flexible. Like it just makes sense. And compassion. I took that out of it too. Like, but be compassionate to yourselves too, because you're doing something that is fabulous for our students, and parents appreciate it more than they'll ever be able to verbalize it to you. So just keep doing your best, keep sharing what you need to know, keep coming back to these Maker Mondays. Be safe, be well, and keep teaching art, everybody. Thank you.